The Theory of Learning, a capstone assignment number 5 exercise presentation presented by Scott DeHerrera for OMDE 610-9040. The Finance Institute is the predominant training organization for financial management across my federal agency. I assumed the position of director almost 3 years ago and noticed that there was no established overall learning strategy outside of just simply offering financial-based training. The Finance Institute had historically depended on contractor-delivered general off-the-shelf type courses, predominantly taught in the National Capital Region. Therefore, it was very necessary for the Finance Institute to develop a strategy that was based on current learning theory that would help establish the program's pedagogy. This lack of strategy, theory, and pedagogy was only ensuring the program's failure for all the relevant students. While leadership believed they had a good training program, the employees believed that the program was failing, which was seen through agency-wide assessments. The goal was to develop a learning culture versus providing training. Some of the challenges that we initially faced, besides a lack of strategy, was that the courses were based on outdated learning theory, predominantly behavior and cognitive theories. The demand also greatly exceeded the Finance Institute's learning capability. The courses were very general in nature, and they were not progressing operational learning requirements that both the supervisors and the students had required. Additionally, future training budgets were projected to remain at an already cut or reduced rate over the previous 3 years, or that they would even be further diminished. So the way ahead was to depend on focusing on learning pedagogy that was already going to utilize some of the agency's technology investments to help advance some of the operational learning, utilizing current theories and pedagogies. The key was to develop a knowledge culture. As Linda Harrison stated, knowledge creation is a deliberate process at advancing the frontiers in a particular discipline. For our case, it was enhancing federal financial management efficiencies evolved predominantly around budget and accounting and auditing. Some of the 20th century learning theories that were evolved by theorists and also utilized by many learning organizations was behaviorist learning, cognitive learning, and constructivist learning. Behaviorist was predominantly observable changes in behavior that was shaped through repetition and replication. Cognitivism was viewed as computer programming, while constructivism actually focused on the knowledge-building process of active learning. Eventually, upon the 21st century, with the advent of the internet and mobile devices, online collaborative learning, otherwise known as OCL, became the new theory. It focused on active learning, that is, having the student centered or the student actively engaged in the construction of knowledge and testing theories. It required constructivist teaching to be done also differently, because it was now the teachers were encouraged to help the students construct the knowledge by problem solving, case-based learning, or inquiry-based learning. Disruptive technology that was going to be utilized would be mobile devices, the use of Wi-Fi, and the internet itself. OCL focused on collaborative learning, knowledge building, and using technology to help reshape both formal, non-formal, and all the informal learning processes. The key principle was on collaboration. Therefore, this required that most of the existing courses would have to be reconstructed or developed from the beginning using the online collaborative learning process. The first step of ideal gathering was to get the learners to engage in group discussions. Eventually, the courses could be designed where the teachers would help the students interact with each other and confront new ideas and relevant course materials. Eventually, as the students would reconvene, they would be able to have intellectual convergence, which was the third step, or therefore informed discussion and analysis of the materials that they had reviewed. Eventually, this would lead to establishment of a final position, which was the encouragement of conceptual changes for the students. Our use of technology would create both learning tools and help to create a learning environment that would allow for online collaboration. The current best practices identified by the Corporate Executive Board was the DoD Financial Management Certification Program. The DoD certification program created a learning structure built around 23 approved financial-based competencies. All the DoD financial-based training courses across all the services were eventually mapped to fit within the 23 competencies and listed on a common DoD FM learning portal. Any DoD employee had access to any of the courses listed on the FM learning portal. Eventually, all financial management jobs associated with DoD were also listed to support the DoD competencies and the various skill levels identified within each competency to create an approved certification program. Each employee eventually had only 2 years to acquire the required training necessary for their jobs. So the Finance Institute was going to base their transformation on the DoD certification program, but an improved version of it. First, there was not a necessary to have 23 competencies. Instead, the IRS was depending on 8 approved financial competencies. The first project was a major training needs assessment, which was going to identify the competencies and the skills and to clearly differentiate the skill levels associated within each competency. The use of collaborative learning processes versus just the subject matter experts that were used to develop the DoD program would help to develop skills and get different perspectives, helping to engage active learning throughout the entire process. This would require an in-course course development process for our new courses that would also use collaborative learning to develop the future courses and to help instruct in our future instructors on how to use the technology. The Finance Institute certification program would very closely mirror the university structure of mandatory courses for all employees and electives based on assigned jobs. We were hoping to mirror the UMUC hybrid distance learning program. Some of the benefits that we would gain from using this transform process was that we were already going to be using assisting agency technology, and it would not incur any additional investment. Eventually, also courses would be based on more relevant content that would support operational learning, which was the requirement for supervisors and the students. Our pedagogy would eventually support modern learning theories. Learning tools would be created through the entire process to assist not only the learner, but the supervisors identify the required courses that each student would need for their jobs. The certification program would allow leadership to better measure the knowledge of their employees in gaining job-related learning and training. This would have hopefully improved the financial efficiency of the entire program through the use of distance learning. Hopefully, the overall transformation program would take 6 to 9 months to eventually start using the new processes. The entire presentation, as presented, was based on the following references within this slide. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the Finance Institute Transformation Program that was based on many of the theories that were developed during this course.